All right, this is a presentation of my school improvement project. Before we get started, I do want to apologize for the poor audio quality. Normally I would never record without an external microphone, but unfortunately, due to time constraints and a bunch of other stuff, this is what it is. So I apologize for that ahead of time. For my school improvement project, one of the things that I'm tasked with while at Meredith Middle School is I serve as both the design technology or computer teacher as well as the middle school activities coordinator. So it's kind of like an athletic director or an activities director, only at the middle school role. I work very closely with the high school athletic director at Hoover High School, which is our feeder high school, to improve kind of our feeder pattern, so to speak. This year, looking more so at the different numbers that we've had. Now, over the past 5 years in my history in this role, we've seen some incredible gains as far as our activities are concerned, but we really aren't meeting the needs of all of our students, and that's what this project really wanted to look at. So, why do we care about student activities? First and foremost, the district has a goal that 72% of all middle school students are involved in some sort of after-school activity in some kind. That could be band music, it could be organized athletics, could be clubs, it could be student government, it could be intramurals, anything where students are involved in an after-school activity at some point throughout the year. And the reason for that is studies have shown over and over and over again that students involved in extracurricular activities are more likely to have, better attendance, fewer behavior referrals, and graduate. And in fact, the data in Des Moines actually shows that students are 6 times less likely to get behavior referrals, level 2 referrals is the way we put them in Des Moines, and are twice as likely to have attendance higher than 97%. So that on its own would be worth the merit of pushing to get kids involved in activities. But on top of all of that, they're also much more likely to graduate. And I think a lot of this stems from the fact that students that are involved in activities feel like they belong more to the school. They are more a part of that culture and that community, and then it just brings in that engagement. So even students that might be disengaged in the classroom might only be coming because they have a certain activity after school or have a connection with a teacher or coach of some sort. So what I wanted to do is really focus on how do I get my school to that 72% and really higher than that. I firmly believe that it should really be our goal that 100% of all students that walk through the halls of Meredith Middle School are involved in some way, shape, or form. I believe in the power of activities that much, but understanding that that's probably an unrealistic expectation, the district has set theirs at 72%. So I knew I had a focus. I knew this could drastically improve things at Meredith Middle School, so that's why I chose student activities. Plus, it's also something that's near and dear to my own heart. I spent a lot of time working and cultivating this program at Meredith, so it just seemed to make sense for this particular project. So, my action plan. First thing that I wanted to do was review the activity data from 2016-2017 using Tableau. The district, I'll show you what we got here. The district uses Tableau for a variety of different things, but I look at it primarily for activities and athletics, and I can kind of go through and we can actually break I don't need Merrill there. We can break down by SPED, ethnicity, ELL, yes or no. We can look at a variety of behavior referral data. We could look at GPA. We could look at all sorts of different things. And Maris over here. But in this just basic screen, I can take a look and I can see maybe where all of my activities and participation are coming from. So you can see at Meredith, we've got a pretty big music program. Our athletics account for quite a high number. Clubs are growing. This other is kind of our other stipends, which include student government, debate, drama, speech, stuff like that. So we're definitely growing. But what I can do is switch back and forth between years. I can look at, it's almost data overload, but I kind of geek out over the data. So one of the first things I did was really started to look at our numbers from the 2016-2017 school year, and then try to identify how we could improve on those. So that was the first thing I did, and then using that data, I wanted to identify different populations or areas where we could potentially grow. So what kids are we missing, and how do we move forward to meet those needs? That's kind of developing a plan. So I wanted to develop a plan as how do I get those kids that aren't currently involved. Then I just gave it a shot, did exactly what we wanted to try, and now we're at the evaluation stage where even though we're only about halfway through the school year, we've already seen some pretty dramatic effects. So we'll get into that. So 2016 activity data. We had 614 students, which accounted for nearly 70%, participated in some sort of extracurricular activity. This was good enough for second highest in the district. We have a tendency to fall very far behind Merrill Middle School, which has a completely different population than what you would see at Meredith Middle School. Socioeconomically, ELL, just general diversity in general is completely different. So that's a whole other story. But we did have a higher number of total students enrolled last year in and out throughout the year. And these numbers all from Tableau account for literally any student that has walked the halls at Meredith. So whether they stayed the whole year or a day, they were counted either for us or against us, depending on how you want to look at it. So one of the things that I noticed right away while looking at it, my focus was on ELL, because I always had a sinking suspicion that they were underrepresented amongst our activities, and what I found was pretty staggering. So as you can see from the numbers, 75% of all non-ELL students participated in an activity, where only about 60-61% of our ELL students did. So when you break that down, that's 57% of all the students that didn't get involved in something at Meredith were ELL students, despite the fact that 37% of that total, they only make up 37% of that total population. And this number, the 150, would actually be much, much lower, except in February of this year, I created an ELL Readers Theater program, which brought in about 32 different kids. So, I mean, if you really wanted to look at this 169, it's probably closer to 130. So our numbers were even lower than that, but this is what was represented anyway. And even with all that, we still had a very large gap there between enrollment or involvement and total population. So I knew ELL was the best growth opportunity that I could find, and I talk about that here. So like I said, ELL participation. How do we get there? And when you really start to break it down and we looked at it, we were finding, and what I did is I actually brought in a bunch of kids from different cultures, ones that I've had in class, and just had conversations with them. And I'm finding out that a lot of them aren't even aware of the different opportunities that we have for them, whether that's just a culturally language barrier or they're just not paying attention. One thing that you'd also find at home is a lot of parents really don't see the value in extracurricular activities. They want their kids to come home because they usually help out around the house, whether that's watching smaller siblings or even cooking, cleaning, working, trying to help provide for the family. So when you're talking about awareness, engagement, and recruitment, a lot of it is almost as much at home as it is in the classroom. And so we really need to focus on how do we get students aware, ELL students aware of what's going on, and then how do we recruit them, and then ultimately how do we engage them in the activities at school, whether that's attending and participating or just showing up and helping support, going to a basketball game or a volleyball game or something along those lines. So those were definitely things we needed to work on. And then we were running into some pretty big hurdles with our paperwork and our physicals. So like the registration process to enroll in school is provided in multiple languages, but it turns out the registration for athletics and activities is not. It's only in English. So that was a huge hurdle. And physicals, getting kids physicals, especially ELL students, was really, really hard. Most of the time, parents didn't understand why they needed to take their kids to the doctor. A lot of times, they just didn't have the time to take their kids to the doctor because they're working multiple jobs, or they're working in Marshalltown, or in a plant 40 minutes to an hour away, like a lot of our parents. So those were really big issues that were getting in the way. So I knew if we wanted to increase participation, we were going to have to do something in all of those areas. So what we did is we sat down and tried to identify what services we could get for our families and our students. So we looked at our list of interpreters. We gave a lot of our forms and things to our interpreters. We're actually looking at potentially creating a PowerPoint much similar to this one that you're watching right now, but being able to give an outline of this particular PowerPoint that would explain the benefits of being involved in athletics and different programs to parents, and then giving it to our interpreters where they can not only change the PowerPoint to different languages, but then they can also do a screencast-o-matic like this and be able to show that video and post it on YouTube and be able to show that to families at home, kind of combat that cultural barrier where it exists, and try to get past that language barrier. But that would have also been a great opportunity for us to explain not only the benefits, but the different steps students have to take. We've also started going to ELL Saturday schools that are at Meredith on Saturday mornings. And with the help of interpreters, I've gone and talked to parents and families, because these Saturday schools don't just serve the kids, they actually allow families to come in and to work on their English or learn a little bit more about our culture. And so I've gone a couple times and with the interpreters talked to different groups and explained the benefits and some of the process. So that's been a big part. Trying to find all the free and reduced clinics in the area were another thing. Cost did become a huge factor for a lot of our families, and then they just didn't even know where the clinics are. So had to find those services and try to reach out and figure out what we can do there. We needed to increase our opportunities. For example, intramural sports. We've had them for years. It has not been a particularly strong program, but myself and another teacher decided this year that we were going to take it over and kind of change it. So trying to figure out different ways that we could get intramurals to ELL kids. Other opportunities include, we do a guitar club and things like that, and just how can we replicate that? And finding teachers willing to do that was also a pretty big deal. And then the last idea I had was the idea of creating an ELL activities coordinator position where we would basically have a teacher that's embedded in the ELL program with these students. They see them every day, and then they would have kind of an inside track on making sure we could get that recruitment engagement and the logistics of figuring out physicals and stuff like that. So that was our plan coming into this school year, actually coming into the last summer, and then we spent a lot of the summer trying to figure out how do we do these things. So we did it, at least a lot of things. So this fall, we brought on an ELL activities coordinator. It's a guy named Dan Johnson. He's an ELL teacher at both Meredith and Hoover. Dan is utterly fantastic. He goes above and beyond anything that we've ever talked about doing. He makes home visits. He grabs interpreters. He sends kids things home. He breaks down the different paperwork. He meets one-on-one with families during Saturday school. He does so many great things, and we were able to, he probably would have done that for free, but every middle school is given 3 wildcard stipends that can be split up or used however the activities coordinator and the principal feel. And my principal and I felt like this position, if we really wanted it to be worth, or be what we want it to be, that person needed to be compensated for their time. So we gave them a full stipend, which is something we almost never do. But we gave Dan, and it's only $2,000, but Dan, he has been phenomenal, and the money for him is just an added bonus because he would have done it for free. And then we took intramural sports opportunities to the ELL students. So we obviously noticed we were having troubles keeping kids after school, in large part because they had to go pick up smaller siblings. But so we noticed that, hey, these kids are really involved in playing soccer in the morning. So we moved our intramural schedule around to get some different events in the mornings before school. So we took 3-on-3 soccer. We did soccer, tennis. We did some volleyball. We've done some. We're in the process of going to start some dodgeball, which most of them have never played before, but they seem to really enjoy it so far. But we're moving that around. So trying to take these particular opportunities to those kids. They're here early in the morning, so let's get them involved in something early. Our soccer tennis intramural tournament that we had over 67 kids involved, and I think about 40, 45 of those kids were ELL students. So that's a big chunk of kids that we might not have gotten involved, especially in the 6th grade levels. One of our favorite things that has really helped us this year is our cultural community liaison that we have for Meredith and Hoover. I worked with her, and she was able to get a primary health care clinic set up at Hoover that's there every Tuesday and Wednesday, and they provide just general health services, including sports physicals. And we've gotten, I think, over 30 kids in there to get physicals already this year. The other thing that we've done is a teacher at her school, his wife is a resident at Blank Hospital here in downtown, and so she and some other med schools residents who need extra hours working in the community have come in multiple times and done some free physicals for us as well. So that has really helped us overcome that gigantic hurdle. And then one of the last things that I've been trying to do is some professional development for my coaches, really explaining them that there is this giant population. We're about 270, 280 ELL kids in the building, and we've got this great population of kids that are extremely hardworking, and a lot of them are very athletic, and yet we're not doing anything to recruit them and engage them into our athletics. So we've done some professional development with our ELL teachers, explaining different strategies when it comes to coaching and when it comes to talking to ELL students. So that stuff has already given us great dividends as far as our numbers are concerned. So right now, we did an evaluation earlier this week. Okay, where are we at right now? I mean, it's December. We still have almost 6 months left of the school year. That's optimistic. 5 months left in the school year to make this even better. And we've already found that we're already at 74.2% of all the population in the school has already been involved in something. And we still have some of our heaviest participated or involved sports yet to come. And you can see we're at 71%, which is almost an 11% jump already from where we were at last year. And we haven't even had our soccer season yet, which is normally where we'll get anywhere between 40 to 50 ELL students out playing soccer on both the boys and girls side. So those numbers could even go up even further. We've got another couple programs that we're looking at hitting in the second semester. So ideally, my goal, and this is probably optimistic, I think we should be able to get above 80% for the entire school and at least 75% of our ELL students. You could see our fall sports participation was up 280% from last year, so it almost tripled. And that's just volleyball, cross country, and football. So we're definitely seeing some great successes, but I know we have some work to do still. And so next steps. One of the things that I really want to do is get some of this data out in front of the directors of Des Moines Public Schools and even Superintendent Ahart. They need to see this. They need to see what we've been able to do at Meredith Middle School. Our current reality is that ELL is going to do nothing but get bigger. And in fact, if you were to look at our ELL enrollment, it has tripled since the early 2000s. So I would assume that trend is going to continue. And so if we really want to meet the needs of these learners, then that includes both instructional and outside of school. So one of the things I'm pushing for is the creation of a permanent ELL coordinator similar to what Mr. Johnson does at every secondary school, whether it's middle school or high school. A lot of these kids want to participate, they want to do things, they want to get involved, but they just don't know who to go to. And sometimes having somebody embedded like Dan and just say, hey, you want to try volleyball, or you should try wrestling, and let me help you do everything you need to do. I think that's a no-brainer. I mean, you're talking about, I don't know, just off the top of my head, I probably should have done, it's like $30,000 annually. but you're going to bring in probably close to 1,000 more students into your activities program. So I think that's well worth that. We just got to educate the people that make those decisions. And then just continue to push the engagement and opportunities for all students, whether that be participating in a sport, going to an event just to watch and support and being a Meredith Husky, whether you're ELL or just a normal everyday student. So that's what we're going to continue to do at Meredith Middle School, and I look forward to doing that. And so thanks for letting me have the opportunity to share that passion with you, and yep, that's all I got.